simple process. It's really about building community that's centered around hearing, chanting, and distributing. If you have that in mind, those elements will assure your success. Because we want to hear and chant. We want to chant japa, we want to chant kirtan and bhajan, and we also want to read Prabhupada's books together and get to know them. He wrote them for us. And then we go out and give them to other people. And the two things complement one another, just like rice and dal. Rice is a staple all over the world. People eat rice. And in some places they also eat dal. But if you put the two together, you know how much increased nutrition you get from that? 42%. That's a lot. Because there's synergy between the rice and the dal. That's in Julie's cookbook. You know the big cookbook she wrote? I looked it up under rice. She talks about the amazing synergy between rice and dal. And the way I conceptualize the process is there's hearing and chanting, and then there's distributing the books and the holy name and going out and meeting people to give it to them. And if you have one, it's good. You have the other one, it's good. But when you put them together, it's a superfood or super sadhana. And that's the mainstay of a community like this. It's really a nice time in which you don't have huge overhead. Everyone maintains themselves. They come together and hear and chant. And if you work on building community and just become solid amongst yourselves in the process, other people will come in and be attracted. And then gradually, just like Madhavendra, when he met Gopal in Vrindavan, he called him in a dream, and then he started the temple right there on Govardhan Hill. Then people naturally came. All the citizens of Vrindavan came, and they each contributed. Somebody gave a couple cows, somebody brought rice, other people brought other amenities, and then two brahmanas came from Bengal, and they engaged in deity worship. And it builds from there. Prabhupada especially liked it when devotees would come together in community, hear chant, and distribute. And that, what you're doing here is obviously working. And it's really important too, you get extra credit. You like extra credit? I always love extra credit. Extra credit, extra. Well, you get extra credit for being in a place that's not already developed. If you go someplace where there's already a really big congregation, and things are all in place, then it's always nice. Everything about Krishna consciousness is nice. But when you pioneer something, and you start in far-flung places, considering that it's not been done there before. Tennessee's never really developed that much. I know a few devotees have been down there, and maybe in some places there are still some small programs. But nobody's ever put it on the map. And if you start in a place like that, you're getting a lot of notice for it, pioneering in that way. And just start small, keep it simple, and do the basics really well. Really good prashadam. That's what attracts most people. And community. When they can come and make friends with people and process what they're going through in their lives in a spiritual environment. And then for the devotees, it's important to have time to hear chant, which you're all doing, and then to go out and feel what it's like to go out into the great unknown, which is the public. And with some courage, go out and present to other people. And when you have those things in order, then you can just keep growing and growing and growing. I really like what you're all doing. It's fantastic. And the way you're expedient about it and efficient, thinking about, okay, what are the best places, how to keep everyone engaged in classes. And you have forays out into the book distribution world also. You're doing some festivals. Where are you distributing books from?
Mostly outside Indian store, grocery store, or at the festivals that we do. So we usually put our goods on festivals also. Like this Lambi is celebrated, about 200 to 50 people that we have a table over there. So a lot of general people who are not necessarily connected also come here and they ask for books.
Bhagavatam, we encourage everyone that we need, that they should invite Bhagavatam into their homes. We offer to do a program there if they invite Bhagavatam.
Perfect. Excellent.
And like these Mataris, they in Memphis, they bring their.
I think it's that every place has their unique challenges, especially the non-profit organization. So I think he has shared at times how to, first of all, how to being a leader, how to always stay enthusiastic and positive in spite of sometimes you may not get the response you may expect from the effort we are putting. So how to keep going in spite of not getting the appropriate response you may have in mind.
First thing is adjust your expectations. And like when devotees go on book distribution, I like to, can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Sorry. When devotees go on book distribution, I say don't go out to sell a book. Just go out to get purified. And if you live with that level of expectation, then you'll never be disappointed. If you have an expectation that people will do what I say and they'll be ecstatic about everything and never want to cooperate, you won't be able to sustain that. People are people. But if you're methodical, dispassionate, I mean, you can't be completely dispassionate because we're humans and we deal with other humans and we become attached emotionally, and we really want to help people. But that's one of the first things. And the second thing is when you deal with issues, then it's nice to have a trusted group that you can talk to. At ISV, we started really small. It was a tiny, tiny little thing. And I saw as we started to grow, there were struggles, problems. And at that time, I was temple president. I didn't start as a temple president. We didn't have, we weren't in on the first couple of years. It was just in a house. But then I realized that there were problems that I didn't want to deal with alone. So that's when I started depending more on counsel. And I take the issues, problems, and say, this is what's going on with this and that. And then the devotees would work it out amongst themselves, instead of it all coming back to one leader having to deal with the grief of various reversals that are inevitable. And that goes to expectation, which is be ready for people to break your heart. Because you can take care of people and then later they change their mind or they move away or all kinds of things happen. But you'll see as you just keep going, it'll all turn out okay. I mean, the material world, everyone's always moving around and it's unpredictable what's going to happen next. All you know is it's going to change. So if you don't get to, you have to be a little bit, allow it to be a little bit fluid. If you want to be more specific or ask more questions, you can. I'll take a few more minutes.
I like the question which was talked about in the Disciple Sangha, and I think Guruma also mentioned the answer to it, and the last question was there about how to stay enthusiastic also when it's not, when you may not, I think the question was, you may not be on focus or something like that, and how do we stay enthusiastic about things and still, and then Krishna mentioned steadiness, that we just keep doing our service to the best of our potential, and that should keep us going. And I think Ramaja, you also just now answered, mentioning about that one, if we modify our expectations, then that can help. I think I get a little. It's personal, but I'll share. And I get bored, stuck because when she asks me something or discusses something with me, then I tend to answer as if what I've learned from the scriptures or from other devotees or something like. But I think she's just wanting to share, and that's where I think I miss the connection there. That probably I need to be a better listener.
Yeah, well,
Trying to be a problem solver.
yeah, the Grihastha ashram is a very important ashram because your mate is your mirror, and you also have such an opportunity to see how you're developing in Krishna consciousness by seeing if you're developing tolerance and that you're able to rise above various situations, which is pretty much the same thing. And also learning to communicate in ways that you can solve problems. Like when Nirkula and I are discussing things, if we take time to try to listen for a little while and understand, oftentimes when we're busy and we're doing, when I say you, I mean when most people are working and they're in family life, they go through, they're very busy and they don't get a specific time to talk. Oftentimes, talking about issues is incidental because everyone's moving in different directions, taking care of what they have to take care of. And the conversation may be slightly superficial. But if you make specific times to sit and talk more deeply, what we've found is there usually are layers, and you have to keep talking because you might be able to then discern something from the other's normal way of saying things, that there's something deeper there that you haven't gotten to. But when you can get to the real issue and understand one another, there's a real surge of energy. Because oftentimes we carry these slight differences around as a burden, and it distracts us from doing what we want to do. Do you want to say more about it?
It's funny you bring this up because we had breakfast with some God brothers and God sister. I was sitting with a God sister, and she was saying, you know, when I try to tell him he wants to fix it and there's nothing to fix it about, it's a health issue for him. And she said there's nothing to do to fix it. I just want him to listen, but he's so much in the mode and he wants to fix it. So I said, well, maybe he just. She goes, he's 70 years old. He's not gonna. But it's nature too. It's nature. So sometimes if communicating with each other, if we just start the conversation by saying, I want to share something with you, but that's all I want to do. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm not asking even for advice, or just state what it is you'd like from each other when you start those conversations, and then that might help. It just clarifies it right in the beginning, and then you get into habits. I mean, you know, it's our nature to want to fix things for each other, and you know, we see problems. I think they say that that's the nature more of a man. You know, he wants to fix it for you. He wants to fix it, and that's a good thing, because sometimes, you know, that's what you need. But when you just want to be heard, which is also a thing with women, we just want to be heard sometimes. So maybe you just start the conversation by letting each other know whatever you're going to talk about. You just let each other know what it is, what you're looking for, what kind of support you're looking for in the conversation. Would that help?
And taking specific time to do it.
Yeah.
If you do it when you're passing each other in the hallway, it doesn't have the same effect as when you say, let's take time to talk, and you schedule an hour for yourselves. You're so busy and you're doing so much for others, and you need time for yourself. And part of that is being able to just talk. And then you can dig down and find what are the points that are really important to you.
I'll just add.
Okay.
So we've decided to conduct at least 2 programs a month. Big level home programs. But sometimes it feels a little burdensome, anxiety provoking. Is it because we are biting more than we should, or is it okay to have that type of anxiety and just carry on? Program turns out phenomenal ultimately, but before that it's just very stressful.
And people who come to programs don't know how hard it is to put them together. They just think like, hey, thanks. But it is hard. We put on programs in our house for 16 years, every week. And it helped us a lot because we always try to keep the house in really good shape. Because we knew we were just gonna have to fix it up anyway when people keep coming. And we take extra care worshiping the deities, we take extra care cleaning the house, put everything in order, get rid of stuff that we don't need. And it's really one of the ways that you can make a lot of advancement as a grahasta.
Could you try again?
I hope that goes into the AI database. So, and with any question about over endeavor, you have to see how you feel later. Like you said, you feel okay about it once it's done. A little anxiety isn't necessary, Prabhupada said. And when you do some yajna, there's always a yajna, getting it done. This is why we have that context, is that you really did a yajna. And especially if you're doing it for preaching, then the rewards are amazingly high. But you have to see, and if it starts getting to you so that you can't do your other services, or you feel like it's draining energy from you, then you can amend it so that it works better for you. Consistency, doing things over a long period of time, is much more effective than scaling up too fast and then getting burned out. That's consistency over time. It's really effective. At ISV, it's been like that for years and years. We haven't pushed too hard to do a lot of big, huge things, except for our book distribution and different preaching things. We've pushed really hard. But just enough so that we stay vitally engaged. So there's something for us to jump to. Prabhupada said about management was that always have a fresh challenge for devotees who want to rise up and meet. And it's important for us, each one of us, to have a fresh challenge, so we don't reach a plateau and just stay there.
When just one couple went and they built the whole temple and the whole community supported. So I just wanted to, maybe it is too much to think, because as you said, Tennessee doesn't have anything as of now. We have some devotees in Nashville, but this was in my heart for a long time, but then they came.
Yeah.
And they are really ahead in bhakti. So
Well, temple building's nice, but a building doesn't guarantee you're going to have a community. Sometimes people get the equation a little backwards. I'm not saying you do, but I'm saying I've seen it before, where there's a sense of, if we just build a building, then it'll all happen. But if you attend to the programs that are most beneficial to the devotees, like hearing and chanting, and building community, and learning how to be efficient in preaching and prolific in preaching, then a lot of these things come much more naturally, and people come forward that can help. If you put all your energy into, it's like the North Pole in here, isn't it? Into the North Pole. You can't, the heat's not adjustable really. Of course, if you have the wherewithal, you can probably figure it out. In general, Prabhupada never recommended building a lot of temples to start with. In fact, he said, I didn't build any temples in India when I first started, and I also didn't plan on building temples here until people started coming forward and offering resources. One thing is you have to maintain them, and another thing is, creates overhead because you got to get loans, and then you got to fix the building. You know what it's like to take care of a house anyway. Times that times a lot, and then you have an extra burden. So in these early days of development, if you build something, a lot of energy gets diverted in that way to building. But in the long run, it's nice to have a plan. If you already have it in your mind, it's probably something you're destined to do. And when the timing is right, then you'll have the community behind it. But the equation of let's build a building and then it will naturally attract the community, I don't find to be a sound idea or equation. It doesn't necessarily work that way. Most of the senior devotees and my elder god brothers and sisters who have come to ISV over the years have always appreciated that we took a slow approach on constructing things. Now it's getting in focus that we need a bigger place. We can't hold everybody. And we also have a lot of ideas about what to build and where to build it. And sure enough, people are coming forward who have the wherewithal to help with those types of things. It happens in due course of time. So that's my feeling on it, and it's what Prabhupada had in mind also. There's a lot that goes into brick and mortar. I would say if you were going to spend a lot of money to help boost the community in some way, I would put it more into digital. Nowadays, your digital presence and what the classes you're teaching, our philosophy is if it's worth speaking, it's worth broadcasting. And so if you put more money first into digital infrastructure and you get a base of people watching you and appreciating your community, build your brand name that way, it's a more likely road to success from having that first. I like digital more than brick and mortar, but the brick and mortar will come.
With all the classes and everything she's been putting on YouTube and then on Facebook, we have a page.
One thing is to read Prabhupada's books, and there's also there's a lot of video about Prabhupada. I was in Delhi not too long ago, and I met some extraordinary young people who were already initiated, and I asked them about their path to devotional service, and they told me that they had not planned on getting so into devotional service. Some of them grew up in it, and they just thought, it's just momentum. There's a series of videos, and I'm trying to remember what they're called, something like Following Srila Prabhupada, that's what they're called. And they used to be just video with no sound. I had them all when we used to, kids back in the old days had these machines called VCRs. And it was a big, huge cassette player with actual tape in it. I had all of them because I knew the person who shot the video originally, and they were rare. And I'd watch them all the time, and they didn't have any sound to them. So what he did was, the producer of that, is he got the devotees who were there at the time. He did some research and found out who was present for these types of activities, because a lot of them you could see them in the videos. And he interviewed them and recorded it, and then added that as the sound. So you'll see Prabhupada doing this, that, And then you hear in the background
Yes.
how the devotee is talking about, here's what happened, is invaluable. And these devotees, these young group, large group, they said, yeah, we were turned on to Krishna consciousness by these. So there are resources by which you can look into Prabhupada's life more, and he can become more of a tangible figure. There's also books like Miracle on Second Avenue by Mukunda Maharaj, and there are many, actually. And some of them, and then there's the Lilamrita. And having some time to just let devotees hear about Prabhupada is really important. In our last youth yatra, we went to Calcutta and spent 3 days. And we did it deliberately. We did it deliberately because we wanted the young people to get more of a relationship with Prabhupada. So we went to his school where he went when he was a kid. We walked by the house that he used to live in. Then we went to his temple, Radha Govinda temple. We went to the place where he was born. And in many of these places, ISKCON has a presence now because they've got property. And then Old Road, Junction Road, where Prabhupada met his spiritual master. So many of the kids, best of all was where Prabhupada got on the Jaladuta. You can stand on the bridge and you can see the Ganga is the body of water that goes by the dock. That's what Prabhupada got on, the Ganga. And then it went out to sea. And when the kids had an opportunity to see all that and be in Kata about Prabhupada, it really helped to orient them. So that you can engineer that, to use a kind of technical word, but inculcate Prabhupada's personality and history and so forth. And it's such an incredible story. When devotees see what Prabhupada actually did and they hear about it, they become more attracted and appreciative. I just say that this is an amazing community that you have. And I've been looking forward to meeting you. I told Nirkula, whatever we do, because we got meetings, pretty much nonstop, not in their chain. And I said the main thing, we wanted to meet you and your group. Because I know this vibration. I've seen it before our community started like this. And it's really beautiful. And I guarantee you, as you keep doing this, it'll just develop more and more and become sweeter and sweeter, because you'll have time served together where you're doing the yajna, where you've worked through problems, where you've invested your hard-earned money in certain projects, and it'll become a very noticeable thing. It already is. When I think Tennessee, I'm thinking, yes, something's happened, and you've put it on the map. So, congratulations to all of you who have been giving your life and soul for these types of preaching activities. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Gauritai, Shri Shri Radha Govinda, Shri Shri Lakshmi, Shri Shri Sivasaya. Please bless and empower the Tennessee Yatra and anybody else who lives in Alachua, or anywhere else for that matter, that they may be empowered in their practices of Krishna consciousness, and then they're able to bring more and more people into Krishna consciousness and build a beautiful, ever-increasing community. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare